this week, in the past week, we had some graduates of the CAF A license program because as part of the new rules over there at the PSL and in SAFA, in order for you to coach in the PSL, you have to have a CAF A license, right? So Coach Tinkler, Coach Hunt, I believe Coach Godfrey Sapula also got their CAF Pro licenses, CAF A licenses that were being celebrated. But this, of course, then brings around the question that how do you rate these licenses next to each other? How do you make sure that if I have a CAF qualification, CAF A, CAF B, CAF Pro, how do I know that that's going to serve me elsewhere? And part of the reason that we bring this up is that we've had CAF Pro licensed coaches, like for example, a Pitso Mosimane, struggling to get into Europe, struggling to be benchmarked. And this week, during that graduation ceremony, we got a little bit of insight as to why this happens. Walter Steenbok is the technical director of SAFA here in SA. Walter Steenbok, obviously, part of his job is to run these courses, make sure these guys, the courses are benchmarked well and all of that stuff. And he came out to say that the big problem that is happening between Africa and Europe is that Africa, the CAF licenses, have not been benchmarked with UEFA, right? They have not had the conversation in order for them to check where the levels are. To give an example, CONMEBOL, the South American Federation, recently got with UEFA, sat down, and they got a way of benchmarking UEFA Pro versus their qualification, CONMEBOL Pro, and also they got access to UEFA, classes, what do you call it, UEFA courses and things like that, that they're going to be integrating into their syllabus. And right now, what happens in Africa is that in terms of the whole of Africa, even CAF Pro was only recently launched. I believe it was launched in 2003, and there's only 3 holders, of which Coach Pitso Mosimane happens to be one of them. So then now, and what the federations on their own, BOSAFA, the associations under the federation do, is that they go and create their own deals. For example, Algeria and Morocco have deals within Europe in order to make sure that their country-specific license is aligned to Europe. Then, of course, we are trying to get in with the Scottish FA. Now, the Scottish FA has produced Abo Mourinho, has produced Abo Arteta, so they're confident that they can do it that way to make sure that at least, man, when you look at our qualifications and you say that the qualification came from South Africa, you can then say that, okay, it's been benchmarked and tested against the Scottish FA thing, and maybe that's a way in. And I think where I want to go with this conversation for me is that, again, we are seeing a situation. We're seeing a situation where CAF is behind, where world football is not aligned, where it feels like everybody is doing what everybody wants, and you can tell the certain federations that have the good of their football in mind. In a perfect world, I would sit here and say that the UEFA license shouldn't matter. The UEFA license is not the best thing. Playing and coaching in Europe is not the most important thing, is not the best thing you can do for yourself. But the truth is that those teams just so happen to be the best in the world. Best facilities, best money, best everything happens to reside in Europe. And for us to grow, sadly, some of our people have to go that side in order to test themselves versus the best, get better, and bring back those learnings. But how can you facilitate that if our licenses are not aligned? If we don't know how far away we are from Europe or how close we are. I had a conversation a few months ago about how do we rank ourselves as Africans when we look at ourselves versus the best in the world. I've spoken about how does Mamelodi Sundowns compare to a mid-table top 5 league team? How does Mamelodi Sundowns compare to a championship team? How do they compare to League 2? But then now to come to find out that those mechanisms of comparison and those mechanisms to make sure that we are not being cheated, for lack of a better word, are not there. Now, Coach Pitso, he's got a CAF Pro license, he's working in the Middle East, he's doing all those things, but when he goes to Kokota there, where we want to see him, there's no benchmarking. It also calls to question, what is the value? What is the value of a CAF qualification, a CAF license? Because for me, I sit back and I go, okay guys, why not just go to Europe and get my license there? Because European coaches are certainly coaching here. Coach Bruce is a UEFA Pro, I believe, license holder. So why waste your time trying to get your qualification here when you could just go overseas? I know Atazwan is overseas. I know Dylan Shepherd got his license from that side. So why Coach Hunt, Coach Tinkler, Coach Barker, and all those people, why waste your time getting an African qualification when you can go overseas? And to CAF, how do you leave this as an open loophole where you can't be valued, where we can't upgrade, downgrade, where we can't rank ourselves? Are we doing our own homework? And I understand there are some things that don't exist in Europe. There are some challenges that you're going to face as an African coach that you might not encounter in Europe, across the world. But the truth is that we have to. We are in a FIFA-led association where we are all members under it, which also calls to question FIFA. For me, it sounds like people are making up their own curriculums. People are making up their own everything. And then only after going through and saying, okay, now I can go and sit down and see what other people are doing. What does that do to the quality and standard of football around the world? Is FIFA not meant to be the custodian of that football? Is FIFA not meant to be the people that come in and tell us and show us and go, okay, guys, this is where everybody is meant to be on the same level? And who must do that job? Who must do that job if FIFA is not going to do it? If CAF is not going to do it? If the associations have to go and find their own connections? How is a smaller African country going to make connections that side? And I know it might be a little bit condescending, but it's true. There's a lot of countries that don't have those resources, that don't have those things. If we're all meant to go make our own connections all over the place without being facilitated by a mother body, the gap gets wider. When UEFA is reviewing and changing and doing all of those things for themselves as the leaders, as the perennial leaders of football in the world, how do we know whether we're catching up as the rest of the world? How do we know that they're doing the right thing and not regressing? So it really is so interesting, man, so disappointing at times to see how far politics play into this. One comment that Walter Steenbach made that really scared me was when he said that, hey, they've still got time, they're still building these things, they're still doing all of this stuff. You don't have time. Now, Baba Coach Pitso's battling and struggling to get into Europe, even though we know their pedigree. Having to go to all types of extra courses, Libo Michela Teta and all of those people, extra courses, in order for him just to try put his head above water. What of everybody else that's going to follow him if this is not fixed right now? If this is not benchmarked? What happens to Coach Rulani? Budding young coach, incredible coach. I think I'm not sure about his qualification, but can you imagine having a Coach Rulani who is now struggling to take the next step in his career? All because of structural issues. I don't know about you, but it shocked me. Because for me, all this time I was walking around thinking, okay, CAF Pro is the highest qualification you can get in Africa. I guess it's been benchmarked. When Coach Pitso was announced to get it, the picture that I'm using right now, everybody thought, oh, wow, he's taking the next step. Coach Pitso might be back in the continent, might be back in the country. Might be a martyr. I don't know, man. African football, hey, we really need to get in line. And we really need to realize that this is for us. This is for us. This is for the good of football. And when the good of football gets better, that means that everything else gets better. That people start looking at it differently, that resources come, that all of those things happen, that the quality, the standard is brought up. We see it with players. But guys, anyway, that was the first topic that I wanted to touch on. It's just really an irritating thing that administratively we find so many issues when it comes to African football. And I don't think these are incredibly intense issues to figure out or to solve. But we can't be sitting in 2024 and still having these small issues.